All right, so welcome everyone to After Effects. And so today we're going to be going through how to make this piece of motion design in After Effects. And hopefully you guys will learn something new about After Effects or about motion design. We have an amazing community called Motion Design South Africa. And we have a Discord community there where a lot of us share and talk about motion design stuff. So if you go, wow, this was an amazing session, please do join our community there and engage with other motion designers. All right, so before we begin, I want to talk about a really cool site called Coolers. For those of you who don't know Coolers, it's a really quick way to getting amazing colors. I'm actually colorblind, crazily enough, and so I use this website all the time to kind of make sure that my colors are looking good and kind of stealing the popular colors. And the cool thing about it is you can kind of click on these colors and it copies the hex code to your clipboard. So at any point you can just kind of copy that color, go into After Effects and almost paste it as a new layer, which is really rad. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, let's begin. We're going to start a new composition in After Effects. And to do that, we go up to Composition, New Composition. And the best presets to use in After Effects is kind of 1920 by 1080. It's most of the time, if you're watching YouTube or anything that's on kind of TV or anything like that, this will be what you see. We tend to use a square pixel aspect ratio, 25 frames a second. And let's make this duration 5 seconds long. I tend to make my background color kind of like a light gray. And this is what we're starting with. So there's no layers in in this timeline yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into my Coolers panel and I'm going to select a color here that I like. I think I'm going to use this color palette over here. And I'm going to go for this kind of yellow color as my base color. I'm going to jump back into After Effects and I'm going to hit Control Y, and that's going to bring up to create a new solid. Now, a solid is like a new layer in Illustrator and Photoshop, and it gives you the ability to change the color. And so, because I've copied this color palette over here, I can simply just paste it in this hex code down here. And this creates a brand new layer for me inside of After Effects. I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to call this background. And just for the sake, I'm going to lock this layer so that I don't move it or click around it, because this layer is not going to really change. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and click my text icon over here, my text tool. And I'm going to type in my name because we're going to make this kind of a Richard Bolland motion design, and feel free to insert your own name here. And you can pick a font that's quite cool. I quite like Futura. It's nice and clean and simple. And I like to make things all caps. And let's drop this down to like maybe like 50 or something like that. After Effects has a really cool align function. You can just click this align tool to get there. You just go window align, and let's just make sure that this is sitting right in the middle of the screen. In After Effects, you can copy and paste, and that will essentially duplicate the layer. You can also Control D, that also duplicates the layer. And what I want to do is just pull this down below and insert my surname. I also just want to make sure that these are kind of center aligned. And then, I want to go back to my align tool and just make sure that these are kind of, make sure this is on composition and make sure these are aligned in the middle of the screen. So now we've got, your first name and surname here. I'm going to copy and paste that again, drag it down. And remember, this is kind of what we're making here. So we're going name, and then motion design, and then we're going to end off with show reel. And so we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to copy and paste it. bring it down a notch, and then let's just call this design. And just to make these texts a little more interesting, I'm going to take these two and I'm going to just kind of give them a different style of font. Maybe not that one. Maybe this black one. So we have kind of nice text design here to be in the middle of our composition. You can see here that we're a little bit down, and so to make sure that this is in the center of the composition, we're going to go up to title safe. So this is this little button here, click title safe, and that gives us some cool like parameters where we can make sure stuff is in the middle. And I'm going to drag this up around to make sure it's smack bang in the middle. And awesome, we're pretty much, a quarter of the way there. We've got our text in the middle of the screen. They're all on separate layers. It's really cool as a base. And now we can kind of start working with some of our shape layers to create these cool looking bars here. And so to do that, I'm going to go up to the rectangle tool, and I'm going to make sure that it's got a fill. So I'm going to make sure it's got a solid color as a fill, and I don't want any stroke. So I'm going to make the stroke on none there. And this will give me the ability to now create some shapes, and specifically rectangles for this tool. And I want to go back and I want to pick a cool color again. So let's pick this color, copy that hex code, and I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to paste that. So now we're working with this cool green. And I kind of want to just make a bar that goes all the way to the end, something like that. For this bar, I want to make sure that the anchor point, because if we hit rotate on this bar, you can see that it's kind of rotating around the middle. We don't want that. We want to make sure this is rotating at the base of the shape layer. So I'm going to go up here and select this pan behind tool, and I'm just going to drag this anchor point all the way to the edge there. And this gives me the ability now to kind of rotate on that anchor point, which is a lot better. We won't necessarily be using that, but it's a good principle to kind of take note of, so that your anchor points are like, that they make sense. All right, this next part we're going to go through quite quickly, and I'm just going to duplicate these layers and kind of position them where I think they should be. And now I want to make sure that there is some consistency with these, the spaces between these shape layers. And so what I might do is just move these up slightly as well, and just make sure everything is nicely kind of aligned. This looks pretty good to me. And what I like to do now is also just go in and copy some of these colors and just kind of change these bars. And you see how easy it is using this website to get some really nice colors. And to do it like super quickly, you can get those colors into After Effects. With these 4 shape layers, I want to just be sure to name them. And to rename layers in After Effects, you've got to hit Enter on the shape, and that renames them. So here we have renamed all of them bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, bar 4. And now we're going to get to the fun part and start animating these guys. And in After Effects, if I toggle down this little drop down here, and you bring up your transform tools, like most animation software, they'll have these typical transforms: your anchor point, your position, your scale, your rotation, your opacity. And we are just going to be working with the position at this point. So it's quite like messy to have, I've got such a small screen here to be able to drop down all of these things every time. And so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all my layers here, and I'm just going to hit the shortcut key P for paper. And that's going to bring up, my position values here on the timeline. And there's this little stopwatch here, which gives you the ability to create a keyframe. And when this is toggled on, it means that keyframes are now active. And so if I go forward in my timeline and I move something, it's going to automatically generate a new keyframe for me. And you'll see here that it starts to tween between these two keyframes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to about the 14 frame mark or so, maybe the 12 frame mark, about half a second. And I'm going to hit these keyframes here to create new keyframes at this mark. I haven't moved anything, so nothing's going to really move around yet. But on these first keyframes here, I'm just going to go and select them all. And then using my shift key and I'm just kind of holding down my left mouse button and dragging to the left. I'm moving all these bars to the left off screen. So now when I click play, you can see that these bars come in. And right now, these are what we call linear keyframes. And linear keyframes are really just, they are the kind of default keyframe inside of After Effects. And think of it as a robot. A robot kind of moves without any easing. It's just like straight from point A to point B. And in motion design, there are times and places for keyframes, but for linear keyframes. But for the most part, we want to make sure that these are eased. And a quick way to ease keyframes in After Effects is to hit F9. F9 changes these keyframes to an easy ease, which you can see here. It's changed to like a little hourglass symbol. And you can see here now that there's a little bit of easing that happens right at the end as the keyframes come to a stop. And to emphasize that ease, we can go into this graph editor and we can visit our speed. This is our speed graph. To give you guys a closer look at the speed graph, this is what it looks like. And this is the speed of our keyframes right now. And you got to think of it as like a car. You got a car that is starting at like 180 miles an hour, and then it's going up to 1,800 kilometers an hour. It's going up to like 2,500 kilometers an hour. It's more like a spaceship than a car. And then it's coming all the way down. It's coming down to zero and it's stopping. Now, just like driving a car, we don't want to slam on the brakes at the end here. You can kind of see these brakes are getting slammed at the end here. Just like you drive a car and you're coming up to a stop street, you want to kind of gently ease on the brakes until the car kind of like rolls to a stop instead of coming abruptly to a stop. So that's why we're going to pull these Beziers out here. And this is going to enable us to, if I just go back to this full screen, you can see here now my keyframes ease a lot more easily. They kind of start a lot faster and then they come to a stop there. And so to go back into the graph editor, just to show you guys again, you can see here that this is what the keyframes are doing. And as my playhead, I don't know how much you can see because I'm sure the frame rate's not amazing, but you can see here that they come to a stop a lot more gradually. So that's looking pretty good. And what I wanted to do now is I want to stagger these keyframes a little bit. So I'm just going to pull them out by kind of 2 frames each. And so now when I play this back, you see here that these bars are coming in one at a time. All right. And I'm really happy with how that looks. So what I'm going to do is I want to be able to control all 4 of these bars at the same time, because what I want to do is flip them over to this side. And one of the ways to do that is to create a null object. And so to create a null object, we're going to go layer, new, null object. And a null object is really just a blank layer. It doesn't come up in the render. It's just kind of like an extra layer that you can use as a tool to move other layers around or apply effects to it or parent stuff to it. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take these 4 bars and we're going to parent it to this null. And I'm going to call this null left bars. It's always good to name your layers, right? And so now when I move this null, you can see all 4 bars are moving around, which is exactly what I want. So what I'm going to do now is make sure that all 5 layers are selected. And then I'm going to simply push Control C and Control V to copy and paste. And that's going to duplicate all those layers for me, which is quite cool. And if I push S to toggle my scale, what I can do now is, does everyone know that these, like when we toggle scale in any animation program, we kind of have the horizontal scale, as you can see here, horizontal scale and the vertical scale. And when these kind of are linked together, you can see it grows bigger and smaller. But for now, we want to delink this, and we just want to invert our horizontal scale. So we're going to hit there -100. And what you'll see now is when we play this back, you'll see that we have 2 bars coming together from either side. And that was super quick to do. It's like we kind of, we're working smart, not hard here, in the sense of we could have just reanimated these 4 bars all by themselves, but why? We've already got them, so let's use them. If you look at the example that I made, you can see here that we also have some bars on the top. And so we're going to go back to our comp here. It's probably a good time to save your work if you are following along. And what I want to do here now is I'm going to call this one right bars. And so now I've got 10 different layers, which are 4 of these bars here, 4 of these bars here, and 2 of these null objects. And once again, I'm going to copy and paste that. So now I have 20 layers. This is, where After Effects starts to shine. Ooh, I didn't copy one of them. Hold on. Let's just make sure. Yeah, there we go. And now, because we've done our parenting right, I can call these top bars, and I'm going to call these ones bottom bars. And by selecting these top 2 nulls, so just so you can see a bit more clearly, we've got our top bars here, our bottom bars, our right bars, and our left bars. And just selecting the top bar and the bottom bar, I'm going to bring up my rotation, and I'm going to rotate these nulls so that they're coming in from the top. And I'm going to make sure that they're sitting on about 90 degrees. So that's, there we go. Let's just put it in there. And so now what you can see is now we've got 4 bars from all different angles coming in. And you'll notice that because these bars are not completely straight, or they're not equally lined up here, what I want to do is go into this bar. I'm going to hit P to bring up my position. I'm just going to make sure that this bar now lines up properly. And I'm going to go down to this one, hit P to get my position up, go to the last keyframe, and just also bring this up so that it's kind of in line. It's not perfect, but it'll do. Rad. So now all we need to do now is parent our text to some of these bars, so that if you see in our main example, these kind of come in with the bars as they come in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my first name here. I'm going to go I'm going to make sure that my playhead is when the animation is finished. And so what I want to do now is I want to make sure that my first name now, I'm going to use this little pick whip tool. And this is a cool parenting tool. This allows me to select another layer that I wanted to parent to. So because I've named everything well, I'm going to go, I know that this bar here is this bar. So now I've parented my name to this bar. So if I play this back, we can see here that my name comes in with that bar. And this does get a little tricky, but I want to make sure that if I go up to my right bars, that it's parented to the second right bar, my surname. So let's go up there, parent that to bar 6. And so now if we play this back, you can see my first name comes in from the left, my right name comes in from the right, my surname comes in from the right, sorry. And now we just need to parent these motion design. So you can also use this tool here to parent. So I know that I want my right bar my left bar, my third bar on my left for that one. And for this design, I want this to be my last bar on the right. So now you can see those coming in. Now we have this error here where my text is not coming all the way off to the screen. I want my text to start off the screen. And so what we have to do now is just on our first keyframe for this bar, we're just going to drag this slightly back. And the same thing for this third one. I'm just going to drag that slightly back. For this bar over here, I want to make sure that this also starts a little bit more to the right. And for this bar here, also want to make sure that this starts a little bit more to the right. Cool. So now if you see my first frame, we've got nothing on the screen. And then we have Richard Bolland motion design coming on all at once. And that's looking pretty cool. We pretty much are like just over halfway now. So we're going at a stupendous speed. The last thing we're going to do for this scene is you'll see in this example scene here is there's a slight rotation and scale that happens. And so to do that, we're going to create another null object. So we're going to go up to layer, new, and select null object. And we're going to name this null object rotate and scale. And because we've done our parenting well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select my top bars, my bottom bars, my right bars, my left bars. So these are just the null objects. And I'm going to just drag them to the top here so that they're easy for me to work with. It won't affect any of our other null objects at all. It won't affect any of our other layers or anything like that. Everything's still looking and working the same. And now I'm going to parent all of these null objects to this rotate and scale. So now what happens if I rotate and scale now, you can see everything is going to rotate. And if I scale in, everything's going to scale. And that's because we've done some good parenting. And once again, like to kind of reiterate parenting, it means that we don't have to go in and like rotate every single layer, like this so that it looks cool. The beauty about parenting everything to one null object is that now with one layer, we can go in and rotate everything. And so I'm going to create a new keyframe here at the 0 frame mark. And I'm going to go to the kind of the 1 second point. And I'm just going to rotate the scene slightly to the, maybe like 20 degrees to the clockwise. And then I'm going to go back here to the first keyframe and maybe set this at minus 20 degrees. So now when I play back, you'll see that this kind of like rotates. And what will be quite cool is to also just add an easy ease to ease these keyframes so that they're a little bit smoother. And what also we want to do is we want to add a scale. So I'm going to hold Shift and then S to bring up my scale. I'm going to make a new keyframe. I'm going to go to the 1 second mark and I'm going to zoom in. And so now if I click play, it's a little bit staggery on my machine here, but you can kind of see that rotating and zooming in. And this is where motion design gets quite fun because you can start playing around with these values. Right now it's happening quite fast. So I'm going to drag these last keyframes out to maybe the 2 second mark. And this will kind of make the rotate and the zoom and the scale like a little bit slower, which looks a little bit better in my eyes. And that's looking pretty cool to me. And now we need to animate this off. And to animate these off, what we need to do is just change the position of these null objects. And remember, these null objects control pretty much everything. And so at the moment, these null objects, they don't have any keyframes on them. So I'm going to toggle this the stopwatch on to make a keyframe. and I'm going to go a little bit forward on the timeline, and I'm now just going to kind of position these so that they fall off the screen. And the bottom bars are going to go off to the bottom, top bars are going off the top, these bars are going to go off to the right, and these ones are going to go off to the left. And once again, I'm going to just easy ease these to make them look nice and smooth. And let's just make sure that they're, once again, it's like kind of like a car. We want a soft, gradual leave so that, that's where things look better like that. So now we have Richard Bolland motion design, and then it leaves us. We can probably just make sure that some of these, so my bars on the left, they can go a little bit more, just so that they fully leave the screen. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that my rotate and scale goes all the way to the end. And motion design, like animation, it's a lot of kind of just playing it back and viewing it, and playing it back and viewing it, and making small tweaks here and there. And that's looking good. So now the last thing we want to do is we want to create like this kind of like show reel as a final text item here. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the mark where things are looking fairly straight. And I'm going to take this, like my surname Bolland here, and I'm going to just copy and paste that. But we do want to parent this to our rotate and scale. So you'll see here that Bolland should stick around like it does there. And we want this to actually say show reel. And let's make this nice and bigger. Let's make it like 100 points instead of 50. But as you can see here, we don't want it to be on screen the whole time. We want it to only appear at the end here. And I also want to make sure that this is just kind of center aligned. So you can see this little cross in the middle. That tells me that it's the center of the screen. And so just making sure that that's right in the middle. That's looking pretty good. Now we need to figure out a way of trying to reveal this right at the end. So I'm going to drag this layer right up to the top so that it's easier to work with. And we're going to use a thing called a track mat in After Effects. And this took me a long time to kind of get my head around what the heck is a track mat. And a track mat is like, it's like a clipping mask in Photoshop or in Illustrator. And I don't know how many of you know what a clipping mask is, but the clipping mask, I'm just going to solo this layer so we can see it. A clipping mask like kind of just reveals what is on top of it or what's beneath it. And to create a kind of a mat, what I'm going to do is just create a box over this, like so. And I'm going to make sure that my anchor point is kind of in the middle of this box, and then make sure that the box is kind of covering. You can see here it's kind of covering my show reel. And now if I hit this toggle switch here, it gives me these abilities to create a track mat. And what I'm going to do is create an alpha track mat here. And you can see here, as soon as I toggle this alpha track mat on, what it does is it switches off this top layer and these two little icons appear. Now that's essentially telling me it's like a clipping mask. It's like it's saying this layer here, whatever's inside of this layer, it's going to show, and whatever it's not inside, it's going to clip away. And therefore, an easy way of bringing on the show reel, as you can see here, I'm kind of going to reveal it like this as the text slides out. So let's bring everything back. And on the clipping mask, on the track mat here, I'm going to just call this an alpha track mat, because that's the technical name for it. And now what I can do is, using my scale on this alpha track mat, I just want to do it on the horizontal scale, and I'm going to go right down to 0. Then I'm going to wait until these kind of depart, as you can see here. So I'm going to make sure my first keyframe is on there. And my second keyframe, I'm going to then make sure that this goes back up to 100%. Now you'll see here that I haven't parented this to the rotate and scale. And so that's why it's kind of not cropping the right way. So I just want to make sure that I'm kind of going to where my rotate is at 0, which is around here. And then I'm going to parent my track matte to the rotate and scale. So now we can see, you can see that track matte now, it's rotating as the rest of the composition rotates. Now, if I just switch off that layer, this should work. This should reveal that show reel as things come out. And I'm just going to copy the same ease as these ones. So I'm going to hit F9. I'm going to go into my graph editor and just make sure I'm on my speed. And I'm going to drag this Bezier out so that it's a nice ease, the same ease as these position keyframes here. As you can see here, it's like a gradual ease out. And it's the same with this one. If I go in here, you can see this gradual. If you look at this red bar here, that's the horizontal scale, and that's just easing out slowly. And so this then should kind of reveal as it leaves us. And maybe what I want to do is just drag this keyframe slightly behind the rest, so it gives it time to just to kind of leave before it reveals itself. But that should do it. That should kind of reveal the show reel. And you can kind of play around with these keyframes to make it look a little bit more snappier. And once again, I want to try and make sure that my rotate and my scale kind of continues. So I'm going to drag these rotate and scale keyframes out a little bit more. And there we should have it. We should have a finished piece. Richard Bolland show reel. Done. I think that looks pretty good to me. You could even, if you wanted to, you could even parent this alpha matte to your actual text layer, and then using the scale on your text layer, just grow this up, scale it up. And so now it's really in your face. Now you really know it's a show reel. Make the logo bigger. And what you can also do is you can also just copy and paste, duplicate. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag these down to below there. And maybe I want to change this text now to like 2022 or something like that, So Richard Bolland Motion Design Show Reel 2022. Maybe I want to change the color of these. Maybe I want this to, let's go back to these colors. Maybe this nice blue here. So let's change that to the blue, and maybe this red for the 22. Richard Bolland Motion Design Show Reel 2022. And that's it. That's a wrap. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.